Dirty Scrap Podcast.
First of all, thank you so much for being here. I know that making this availability from your side is something that we really appreciate. Mostly, I know that the audience will appreciate a lot this episode because this is a different episode. This is the kind of episode that I like a lot because we are not focusing right now in this episode about aluminum like a metal. We will see in this episode the aluminum as how can I say it? I think we will see it as an infrastructure, energy storage, national security. So I am very excited. So first of all, thank you so much for being here. How you been?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Pleasure to see you. Excited to talk about this. I like how you framed it. This isn't the metal. We're viewing aluminum as a strategic imperative,
Right.
and we can talk all about that. Are we recording now, or are we just doing the
Now
background
we
here?
are recording already, so no worries. We are
Excuse
ready
me?
to go. No, 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 no. That's fine. I mean, again, the idea of the podcast is to be very, very organic. Every time that I have a guest here, the idea is to be as human as possible. I don't want to have like this structure, like an interview and just specific questions. No, what we really enjoy is to have a really nice conversation between two human beings that are involved into this industry that is very excited. So uh, I want to start with your background, right? I mean, I know that you've been like managing director, vice president. You was working with the Aluminum Association as well, and then now you're working with SAFE. That, if I am not wrong, SAFE is, and I have it here because I don't want to say something that is not right. Securing America's future energy, right?
Correct. Yeah, the SAFE Foundation, we're an energy security think tank. We're based here in DC, proudly nonpartisan, looking at all these issues through the lens of national security, in that the United States and its allies need the minerals, metals,
Mhm.
energy, transportation, all the key sectors in order to be competitive for the
Right.
economy of the future.
Right. And we will jump into the specific topics in a few moments because I think it's going to be very excited to understand how the aluminum is becoming like a more strategic point of view from the economy perspective, but also I want to know your perspective about the aluminum as a tool for like security in this country. But before we get into those topics, I want to know how you started in the industry, why you stay still in this industry, why the industry is taking you into the point that you are spending too much time thinking about how the aluminum is progressing energy, everything and how this is impacting the economy. So, for the audience, let us know you as a person, how you become the guy that is right now leading this approach.
Certainly, I had the pleasure of working at the Aluminum Association for 10 years, walked in the door as a communications person. Thankfully, through the direction of leadership, was able to take on more of a lobbying role, looked into the strategy side of things and membership. Just had a terrific experience
Right.
across the entire organization, and was lucky enough when SAFE called, they offered me to work on the aluminum portfolio. And
Mhm.
I've told anyone who will listen, aluminum people are the best ever. And so to be able to work in this industry is terrific on the issues, but it really is the people. Not to get hokey for a second, but it really is working with such a terrific, dedicated group of professionals who want to advance this industry. And
Mhm.
so, great run at the association, having a great time here at SAFE. If I can be helpful to the industry, I'm not really worried about the employer side of things, but just how can we
Right.
raise big A aluminum here in the US?
Right. And let me ask you something. How someone like you like ended dedicating so much time thinking about this energy industry and the industrial strategy approach and also talking about aluminum because definitely talking about aluminum we need to involve energy, right? And right now I think energy is a crucial topic that we need to put into the table. So, how you ended like getting involved in all these potential, I will say, tools that we will use in order to grow as a country.
I think you have to look at aluminum as a strategic imperative.
Right.
Yes, you need the metal for specific defense applications,
Hmm.
ships, planes, armored vehicles, but it's also the commercial side. If you just look at the almost how ambiguous it is, transportation, aviation, packaging, technology, AI, data centers. A lot of talk
There you
about
go.
data centers as an energy competitor. Data centers are
Right.
also an end market. That's a lot of metal in there.
Oh
And
yeah,
so
a
you're
lot.
looking at all these applications of this one metal, and you realize the importance of this. Again, we look at it from a national and economic security standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you need the metal for certain defense applications, but you need it for an economy.
Right.
And our concern is that the United States and its allies will be dependent on adversaries for all these important things. Talk about packaging, look at pharmaceuticals, we've got transportation, auto, aviation. Your
Mm-hmm.
audience knows the key markets for this metal. And we look at it from a security standpoint. Yes, industry needs to compete internally. Yes, it needs to
Right.
compete against other metals. We're
Definitely.
not trying to get in the way of that. We're just looking at policies. How can we increase domestic production? Trade is a good thing. Let me back it. I'm not trying to say it's going to be America first. No, 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 no. Responsible, targeted trade enforcement
Right.
against non-market economies is how we're going to get this done. But we believe first things first, we have to find a way to increase domestic production of primary and secondary.
Do you think that right now that you are talking about these issues that we are seeing, do you think it is in the U.S. we are underestimating manufacturing for too many years? Because in this point where we are right now, definitely we need to reindustrialize U.S. Right? It is some of the goals that we have right now because we tercerize, we rely on third parties too much from my point of view, I think. And right now, we want to bring the industry into the US again. Do you think we underestimate manufacturing for too many years and why? Or if not, why do you think we are like trying to regrow the industry right now and we are not doing, or we didn't in the past?
Yes, manufacturing has been undervalued in the United States for a very long time. And yes, that is starting to change. I believe it was the experience we had through the COVID lockdown.
Okay,
For a while there, we couldn't buy cars because we didn't have the semiconductors.
right.
And a vast majority of the country looked around and said, what's a semiconductor and why does that matter? And you suddenly get a deeper appreciation of the importance of a robust supply chain.
Mhm.
Without those supply chains, it was either 2022 or 23, forgive me, I forget which year, the United States lost 1% of GDP because we didn't have semiconductors.
Right,
And so you could see word replace semiconductors with steel, copper, aluminum. You can have a similar scenario where the economic activity will take a hit, not just the loss to a sector, not just the decline of production for one thing. You're looking at countrywide economies taking a hit. For what we just talked about before, all those uses for aluminum. If we didn't have that metal, I understand you can substitution is a thing, but you can't do it for everything. I mean, yeah, you may be on
right.
the margins, but if you were to lose a key vertical, you're seeing the massive loss. That's why I believe. I mean, there was the CHIPS Act
Hmm.
under the Biden administration. There was also the Inflation Reduction Act, which gave pretty good importance, significance, and some funding on the
Right.
supply side of things. There are some structural challenges with the IRA, but the intent was there, and some of those programs continue.
Hmm.
And now you're
And
seeing the Trump administration amplifying that effort. How do you get the
right.
money? How do you get the prioritization? How do you get the people to work on these things?
Right. And from the aluminum perspective, do you see that the companies are taking advantage of this administration and all these benefits that they are putting on the table? And why do you think, or better question, when did you realize that aluminum was more strategic than most people think? Because people think that aluminum is like a can or a vehicle, or right? But it looks to me that from your perspective, aluminum is more strategic. Are you seeing people like feeling the same way that you are trying to put out there this aluminum as a strategic point or tool for us to grow, or not really, or do you think it is moving in that direction?
It is most definitely moving that direction, and I'm based in DC. I look at this from the policy political angle. Yes, current administration, previous administration, there is greater emphasis, I believe. There's greater
Right.
emphasis on aluminum in the last 5, 6 years than there was in the 15 before. And to answer your earlier question, yes, I believe industry is stepping up to meet these opportunities.
Hmm.
The challenges, we believe, are from a policy perspective, in that if the market were able to solve this, it would have by now. Is
Right.
it the availability of energy on the primary side? Is it the sorting technology on the secondary side? Is it the infrastructure across the entire sector?
Hmm.
If industry could, they would have met those challenges by now. That's why we believe government intervention, targeted, specific, is the solution here.
Hmm.
And you've had two different approaches at this. Again, the Inflation Reduction Act and the big beautiful bill. I understand there are some significant differences, but
Right.
conceptually, an administration came in, found funding, had a
Hmm.
lead agency, and was purposely targeting this industry to help
Mm.
strengthen secure supply chains, strengthen defense industrial base, American manufacturing renaissance. There's no shortage of terms here, but in our view, it all comes down to producing more aluminum here.
Right. Talking about producing more aluminum here, what worried you the most about the industrial capabilities we have right now? Because I think one of the constraints that we have right now is infrastructure. So what is that is worrying you the most about the industry capabilities we have right now? And what is these capabilities are comparing to like maybe 10, 20 years ago? What do you think about it?
I think we did an analysis of global production,
Hmm.
and that's when the light bulb went off. If you look at where the United States is getting, and I'm specific on primary aluminum here, demand in the US is 5 million metric tons.
Hmm.
Production last year was around 700,000 tons. So the US can produce 1% of what it needs.
Right.
Yes, there's over 2 million tons coming from Canada. We all know about Section 232. We can
Right.
come back to that later. So, but even if you look at aluminum producing countries that are allies, a lot of volume out of Canada,
Hmm.
Iceland, Norway, Australia, I don't see anybody adding new smelter.
You're
So
right.
of the capacity that's there, best case, it's maxed out. But even then, we still need additional capacity. And so that's from our view. If you look around the world, who's building new smelters? China,
Of course.
Russia. In our view, these are political adversaries. We do not need to be reliant on those who are trying to leverage their industrial capacity. So that was the aha moment for us of just, okay, there are structural challenges in the United States. You mentioned energy being the very big one. But then, okay, trade is a good thing, as I mentioned earlier. Let's look at our allies. Well, they're doing the best they can. They're clearly maxing out. You look around the world, Africa, Mozambique, their smelter closed, was it last month? The
Mm.
Russian invasion of New York, excuse me, the Russian invasion of Europe and the resulting energy spike, primary production was cut in half.
Right.
And all this is at a time of growing demand.
It is.
And so the market structural forces there, the pressure is abundantly clear. Demand up, domestic supply flat to declining, allies flat to declining, adversaries increasing. That's for us the bright red flashing light.
Saying that is very interesting. Why US is putting too much effort in rebuild the primary sector here and how we can compete against China, for example, with this. I mean, if it's a 5,000 years old empire, right? It's huge. It's old, and they've been speaking the same language for 5,000 years. That means something, right? And they plan ahead, like 15 years ahead. How we can compete against an empire like that one when we rely too much on third parties? And also, do you really believe that the primary sector reindustrialization here is something that we will see on the long term? Because with all the energy consumption that we will need and all the energy war that we have right now, it is not easy. So what do you think about it? How we can compete against China, like a 5,000 empire, and then also how we can reindustrialize fast enough to get into the point that we want to go, right? To reach those goals.
Short term, it's a multi-part answer here. Short term, there needs to be effective federal policy that will encourage investment into the sector.
Right.
Trade, targeted trade enforcement, yes, you're seeing a decline of Chinese metal coming straight to the United States. Of course, there is a transshipment angle, so there needs to be a more robust trade, larger trade portfolio than just one tariff.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, we believe there needs to be energy availability and affordability for the sector on the primary side. And through the permitting reform, you heard a lot of that in Washington. How can we accelerate the projects to build and distribute energy?
Right.
If we can better utilize the existing transmission, that is going to be faster than trying to start rebuilding and trying to outbuild China when it comes to energy.
Mm-hmm.
The United States needs policies that can accelerate the existing amount of energy to get it from A to B. So you need trade, responsible trade that can create global allies. You need permitting reform, and you need, which will include some sort of energy reform. I don't see a scenario where the price of energy goes down.
Right.
So this is where there has to be some sort of government intervention. Is it tax credit? Is it production tax credit? Is it, you got to get the utilities involved in this. So there's an energy play, trade, infrastructure, energy on the primary side. On the secondary side, there is starting to be greater effort, and I think it's about time here, on looking at access to scrap volumes. Interesting enough, the U.S. secondary industry has met the challenge of increasing capacity. As I mentioned earlier, demand's going up, primary supply is going down. What are we going to do? Well, by default, you have to strengthen the secondary side.
Right.
Access to scrap. So the capacity has been building, but it's the access to the supply side that I believe needs greater attention to it. And so, yes, infrastructure to strengthen the facilities. There have been a few recent announcements, but how do we get all of the facilities to a modern technology, globally competitive level?
Right.
And then the sorting technology. So once you get the scrap, let's say we're able to, of the scrap that we have, let's say there's a policy that allows us to hold on to it more. Instead of sending it, exporting it, especially to adversaries, that drives us crazy. Why on earth is the United States sending scrap to China?
Right.
I understand there's some technical reasons for
Why?
it, but just conceptually,
Let's dig
drives
in
me
there a
crazy.
little bit. Why we are sending our scrap to China? Because right now we know that the primary sector is a complicated sector from the point of view of energy consumption, energy cost, right? It is very complicated to be competitive when you have this high energy cost. And as you just said, you will need government help in order to have some like kind of taxes or something that will allow the primary sector to be competitive, right? The secondary sector is another industry, totally different, right? We will just consume 5% of the energy that we need for the primary sector. We will definitely not rely on policies or these kind of administration policies. What we will need is to rely on the market. The market itself will regulate everything, right? Because at the end of the day is um, up and downs. But saying that, um, do you think aluminum is becoming, from the strategic point of view, like the next oil? Do you think it's becoming a national security issue? And also, do you think that the secondary industry can really help to support that? Because my question is, why we are sending scrap overseas when we have this huge aluminum demand internally? Why?
Several factors are at play. But yes, on the scrap side, it's a no-brainer on the energy consumption. It's a
Definitely.
no-brainer on the cost of the efficiency. There's a lot of advantages to utilizing scrap in the United States. The challenges, of course, are the price pressures.
Hmm.
Do we have the capacity to process all forms of scrap? That can be debatable. UBCs, no-brainer. Industrial scrap, no-brainer. Transportation, of course we can. Is it the volumes of Zorba and Twitch? There's an argument that we can't process that, so who cares? Let's just send it out. I don't
Right.
believe that's true. I think there needs to be a greater effort to look at how to utilize all the metal we have. Again, demand up, supply down. Let's keep what we have. I also believe there's the transportation angle to this. Our understanding, we've done some analysis of this. On a cost perspective, it's just easier to ship from California to China than it is to put it on a train from California to pick a state, Missouri, Tennessee.
Right.
I don't have a lot of expertise on the shipping side of things, but that as we had analyzed this, where are the pain points? That's certainly one of the challenges. So we believe, in order, yes, the market will dictate this, but can there be policy incentives that reward? We'd rather do carrots than sticks. How can we reward producers, traders, those in the scrap side to keep
Hmm.
that metal domestically?
Right.
And so is it again, go back to tax incentives, permitting reform. There's a basket of policy options that we're still trying to develop. I don't have all the answers today, but we're still trying to develop. How can we
Right.
incentivize keeping that metal here? To your point, you had another question, excellent question about, is aluminum the next oil? Not all commodities are created equal,
Right.
but the narrative remains the same. Growing demand, challenging supply,
Hmm.
we cannot rely on adversaries. We have a
No.
challenged ally network right now. So, again, conceptually, the parallels are there. Once you drill down, obviously things get a little different. But yes, we need aluminum for a number of applications, for defense, for broader economic. We need to produce and keep more.
Right. So, in other words, we need to start treating the aluminum almost like an strategic reserve for this industry. Let me ask you something, because I am 100% agree with what you're saying. And definitely I am. I never use the podcast as a commercial platform, but we obviously provide equipment for the foundry industry. And definitely I am seeing technology out there that will help us with Sorba and Twitch, and draws, and will also reduce, which I am seeing salt-free rotary furnaces that will allow people to go more green, but also take advantage of these materials. But let's talk about UBC. UBC recycling rates are very low in this country. And even though it's, as you just said, a no-brainer, right? It is easy. You just decode it and melt it, and you will have really, really nice aluminum recovery rates. Why we are below the 45% recycling rate on the UBC when we have a lot in the landfills right now, for example? So, do you think it's for something that is lacking of infrastructure, lacking of labor, lacking of knowledge? What do you think it is happening?
It does hurt the brain to think that we are throwing away 1 million metric tons
Hmm.
at a time where we are producing almost 700,000 tons.
Right,
I understand scrap and primary are different, but just the math here, we're throwing away 30% more than we could make. It hurts the brain.
right,
On the challenges side, we see there are three types of challenges. One is on the consumer behavior. That's the hardest. I don't know in this current political environment, is the administration really going to focus on the consumer side of things? I
right,
don't know. There are a lot of good groups out there that are trying to solve this one. So there is plenty of effort going at this. So I'm not trying to diminish it. But I'm thinking from a policy standpoint, I just don't see where the lever could be. As your audience knows, there is no national recycling policy.
nope,
So it's not like Washington, D.C. can wave as one. It's
right,
so hyper local. And so pros and cons to that, but that's where we are. Like it's going to be very difficult to have one size fits all type solution on recycling.
right,
If there are incentives to reward the consumer behavior, that will certainly work. I think, as we all know, there's a stat of some sort. They 10 deposit states are responsible for 40% of the recycling. So on the one hand, it's been proven
hmm,
to reward consumers for a desired behavior can
right.
work. I
Do you
understand
think,
there's a lot of opposition to that.
right? Yeah. Why?
Depending on which part of the value chain,
Hmm.
someone will have to pay more. And so how can the government intervention offset that cost is something we're trying to look into. For
Hmm.
example, and I'm just not to pick on 7-Eleven, but the 7-Eleven really want to become a recycling hub. They have their own business, they have their own goals. But
Okay.
if I'm a consumer and I bought my 6-pack of Pepsi there, it'd be nice to go back and put the cans back there.
Right.
And so I think you've got some logistical and financial constraints throughout the logistics of the value chain there. I think
Hmm.
that's the biggest challenge on the consumer side. The other two pillars, again, keeping the scrap that we have. So even if we do put in the recycling bin, even if it does get through the MRFs, can we make sure that it stays within the country and there are incentives for domestic users to use domestic sourcing?
Hmm.
The third element, we touched on it just now, on the technology side. What policies and funding is available to accelerate the sorting technology? And your audience knows we're not talking about separating steel from aluminum. That's pretty easy.
Right. Yeah.
It's the alloy from the alloy from the alloy.
Exactly. Exactly.
So if we can't, if consumer behavior is the challenge, okay, let's keep what we have because we don't have a whole lot of it. And of the stuff that we have, let's process faster and more efficiently. So it's a bit backwards looking at solutions to option 3 and option 2.
Hmm.
I wish I had a better answer for you on the collection side. I'm not sure
That's
how we're going
fine.
to do it.
That is fine. That is fine. I mean, do you believe that right now? I mean, what I am understanding is we definitely need to understand better the technology that we have out there. Also, we need to understand better that infrastructure is very important. But from what I'm hearing right now, the focus should be on the recycling side or more on the primary sector. What do you think?
I would ask that we stop this either or business. The greatest country on earth can do two things at once. We can
Okay.
focus on primary, we can focus on secondary. Similarly, we hear this all the time when it comes to
Uh-huh.
energy. It's too expensive. Data centers are going to eat it anyway. Why are we putting energy towards the primary? Enough already. We can do both.
Right.
We don't have to. We don't have to make this a binary choice. We can do both at the same time.
Right. Yeah, I am agree because I was trying to think if right now what we need to do is to think about the energy policies and the industrial policies like treating the same right now in the same conversation. Do you think it is something that we need to do, and do you think it's possible to go in that direction to having like energy policies and industrial policies in the same room and talk about the same topics and keep the same conversation to put it together?
Yes, look, going around DC circles talking about this policy and politically, because you and I do this for a living, we know the difference between primary and secondary. We can tell you the difference between extrusions and for
Right.
from a policy perspective, it doesn't really matter. From a policy perspective, if you're going to look at reindustrialization, you got to look big: energy,
Right.
trade, infrastructure, workforce. And so to
Exactly.
go in there, go into a discussion on policy saying, hey, what about my specific sector. Each company can do what they want, but I think as a collective action, we, the aluminum industry here, need to look at this holistically. It should be energy and technology and responsible trade policy and workforce and looking at this holistically and going big. We had an event last week and we on stage had someone from the Department of Commerce.
Mhm.
And I asked in so many words, we got a lot of producers in the room. What's your message to them? And the commerce official said this great line, be bold and go holistically. Don't ask us for a small number and come back with a number later on.
Right.
Think big and think holistically on how we can solve these things. And so you've got a lot of ambition. You saw this with the previous administration and the current administration. There is ambition there to make lasting change. And I just think as an industry, we got to dream bigger, think bigger.
100% agree. One of the topics that I've been talking during other podcast episodes and even with my customers is I am seeing that one of the, at least is my perspective, right? That in this industry, we are talking about the recycling industry, but to me, it looks like we have the scrap yards and the sorting guys doing their job, but not having a really good communication between them and the secondary cast houses. So they are not allowing the secondary cast houses to have better aluminum recoveries, more clean material that they can, use more aluminum scrap instead of primary to build at the end of the day a good semi-finished product. So do you think that we will see some kind of bridge between those two industries to become one industry and understand that if we work together, we will be bigger and we will have better communication in order to understand how to increase our recycling rates, how to improve our cleaning and segregation and separation processes in order to provide to the cast houses this clean material that will allow them to be more profitable, so they will buy more, so you will recycle more. Do you see any kind of, let's say, potential approach to make this industry one united industry instead of like having scrap yards and then secondary cascades and then the foundry instead of having just one vertical integrated industry?
From a market side, I'm not sure. From a policy side, well, it's going to have to. If you look at, if we're serious about strengthening the secure supply chains, if we're serious about strengthening the defense industrial base, if we're serious about American manufacturing renaissance, it's through policies that's going to look throughout the value chain. The examples you were giving, I think everyone's right to defend their market.
Mhm.
And that makes sense when you're competing in the market. On the policy side, that's where we see that it could be the unifier here. And that if we can ensure increasing domestic supply, playing by the rules, level playing field, it can create the framework for the market to continue to compete. And the examples you're giving, well, that's how it's supposed to work. Capitalism is a good thing.
Right.
But
Yeah.
can the policy set the rules, can set a better landscape that encourages investment? I
Definitely.
believe that can solve of the things that could be unifying in the market. Policy can help drive that.
It is these policies approaches sustainable in the long term? What do you think?
Say it again.
Do you think these policies or like policies approaches are sustainable in the long term? Because at the end of the day, it will depend a lot of on the current administration, right? In the current administration, you can have a lefty party just thinking more about immigrants and whatever it is, and I don't want to go in that direction because I am an immigrant and I am happy to be here. I love this country, but in some point, immigrants is something that we need to deal with, and definitely will impact the economy. But when we want to grow the economy, definitely industry is something that we need to focus a lot. So we will need these policies in order to keep the industry growing in the direction that we want to go. Do you think policies is a tool that will help the industry in the long term, or is something that maybe can be here today and not again tomorrow?
Similarly, we shouldn't look at this as either or. I think it's going to take a mix of policies, short term, midterm, long term. Given the size of the challenges,
Right.
energy, infrastructure, these are big issues that we're talking about. And so I think it has to be a combination, short, medium, and long. And yeah, you're spot on. From the political standpoint, the pendulum keeps swinging back and forth.
Exactly.
And so I can appreciate a industry's challenges of how am I supposed to make a 20-year investment if this is going to change in 4 years? If I had a magic wand, I'd fix it. But here we are in the current political environment. Yeah, the way it is swung in one direction, is it this November? Is it 28 November? There's going to be a political swing in the other. But I think for your audience, I think it's very important to realize the vital role that aluminum plays in the economy.
Right.
And so I think there is bipartisan support strengthening defense and industrial base, the American worker, manufacturing, being competitive with or against China, working with our allies when it makes sense. Details matter. I understand that. But conceptually, this industry is in a good spot because it fits into all of those different narratives or work streams or policy development. There's enough around that it will continue to be relevant.
Right.
Yeah, is primary the focus now and secondary is kind of in the back seat for now.
For now,
And
yes.
I can see there are some significant changes. Again, we have to see how elections matter. We have to see what happens. But again, looking at the big A loop, the whole sector, it's too relevant, it's too meaningful. It already fits pre-existing narratives. And so, yeah, it's squeezing a balloon a little bit. Some will be more important than others. But I think as an industry, it's too vital.
Right.
It'll appreciate, it'll have the benefits of bipartisan appeal for the long term.
Definitely. Let me ask you something that is a tricky question. Let's talk about China because we are talking about China. Why China, or what is China doing different from what we are doing right now? And what should America learn from China if it's something that we need to learn from them?
State-sponsored aggression in their manufacturing sector designed to outcompete and undersell the global economy. A
Mhm.
non-market economy is playing by a fundamentally different set of rules.
Right.
Profit and loss doesn't really matter. Environmental enforcement isn't really existent. No-cost loans are a common practice. That's not me just saying that. There's an unending amount of research done on the non-market economy practices of
Right.
the Chinese government on the manufacturing side. So if you're playing by a different set of rules, if making money isn't an issue, of course you can do things differently.
Right.
I do not believe we need to mirror that. We believe that market economies are a good thing. Trade is a good thing.
It
Capitalism
is.
is a good thing. You can have responsible, targeted government intervention without becoming state-owned enterprises. And I think that's kind of unfortunate, getting lost in the debate of having a government step in to fill a void on a strategic industry.
Hmm.
Makes perfect sense. You're seeing this Department of Defense aggressively investing in the minerals and metals that China clearly has a chokehold on, and they want to move quickly in the US and with allies. We see this with gallium a lot. There's the gallium deal in Australia. You're seeing the zinc deal in partnership with the Koreans. This Department of Defense is playing an outsized role in financing strategic industries. There's healthy debate on whether whether this is the right thing to do or how this is
Definitely.
going to work. But I got to tell you, for 40 years, we didn't. And we've all seen a decline across the manufacturing sector.
Why we didn't for 40 years? Why? What happened?
Our view, Wall Street said, get the cost down.
Okay.
Labor, environment, transportation, get that cost down. And it was cheaper to produce X in country Y. We can go down the whole list of all the industries that left the United States to get the cost down.
Right.
But again, earlier I mentioned the example of semiconductors.
Hmm.
The United States has started to wake up to the fact of, oh, wait a minute, there's something more than just a lower cost and just-in-time delivery.
Right.
Secure supply chains has become very important. And we're seeing, again, previous administration, this administration, different approaches, but same idea. We can't be outsourcing these strategically important materials. Semiconductors gets a lot of airtime. You're hearing a lot of talk about critical minerals, but I believe the
Definitely.
major metals, steel, aluminum, copper, are also now in play here. And so there has been a fundamental shift on the prioritization. Is it low cost or is it secure supply? You can have both. It doesn't have to be either or. But I
Right.
think the variance is changing. And so I think that's the aha moment that can we produce it here or can we find an ally that we can trade with? Minerals can be geology is a very stubborn thing.
Oh,
You can't
definitely.
plant lithium. You got to go
No.
find where the lithium is, right? We don't
Right.
plant bauxite. You got to go find the bauxite.
Definitely.
But is it the upstream? Is it the downstream? Is it the processing? There are different bites at this apple. And so it's just nice to see the United States in the last few years taking this more seriously of how can we strengthen our economy.
Right.
And so much of that relies on a robust manufacturing sector.
Right. And before we go, because I want to also to talk about automation, labor, like the industrial survival that we are having right now. But do you think the next industrial war will be like actually a materials war? No, let's not call it war. Let's call it like race. The next industrial race will be actually a materials race, and how we can win this race right now.
I believe the race right now is on technology, AI,
Okay.
data centers, the energy required to make it. There is clearly a race between the United States and China. Our view is that it cannot get lost that you need manufacturing to go along with that technology.
Right.
It can't be, the United States cannot afford AI versus aluminum. You need both. One, the loser, China would eat up. but you need both to be successful.
Definitely.
Yes, AI competes on the data centers compete on the energy front, but as I mentioned earlier, that is an end market for metals. And so there
Mm,
has to be continue working towards a shared solution there. Yeah, so it starts with technology, I think is the current. I like that. Let's not call it a war. Let's call it a race. The technology race is number one.
right.
But to deploy that technology, you need the manufacturing sector.
Definitely.
And so manufacturing, if it's not number one, I believe is a close number two. If we're thinking this holistically, instead of looking at this, sector by sector, got to win the tech race, fully agree. But you need manufacturing in order to do that.
Yeah, I'm totally agree. Talking about manufacturing, every time that I am talking about manufacturing and new equipment and technology, something always jump into the table and is labor shortage, right? Here in the United States is a huge issue, and I think United States accidentally falls down into a dependency of illegal labor, and it is what it is. I mean, it's something that everybody knows, right? Because in order to be competitive, we need to have this legal labor that I think is good. People like me that are coming into this country, we want to make money, we want to help our families in our third world countries, and it's fine. The United States is helping a lot of different people from around a lot of different countries. But saying that, how we can help the industry if we have labor shortage, and also how we can grow this industry when we don't have the labor with the right knowledge to do it.
Okay, that last one is very significant. Do we have, even if we have all the energy and all the infrastructure and all the financing, who's going to do the work?
Exactly.
Do we have the skill set, not just from to your point earlier, not just from a people population figure side, but the
Hmm.
expertise and the training?
Right.
There's the new smelter being built in Oklahoma. It's going to use a modern technology that was developed in the UAE.
Right.
My understanding there are employees that are going to be sent to the UAE to learn how to use that technology because we've lost our ability to do large scale engineering hardware projects.
Yeah.
Engineering, software, the coast, talk about tech, growing, important sector.
Right.
But on the manufacturing side, we as a country have lost that skill set. And so I think, again, a policy person looking at this from the policy lens, what is
Right.
it we can do through the education system? What is it we can do from tax credits? There's a whole host of things that the United States could do
Hmm.
to start directing careers toward the manufacturing sector. I
Right.
believe as the sector grows, the people will come. It's not great right now. You're spot on. The demand for labor exceeds the supply of labor. But I think as
Definitely.
you're seeing the the strategic importance of a sector grow, the workforce will follow.
Right. A question just popped up into my mind. So, do you think, because everything that you are saying, hopefully is going to be like that, right? Definitely, we need that. But do you think the next generation is still ready to sustain this heavy industry? Because we have like podcasters, YouTubers, AI guys, but we need people that wants to get their hands dirty in order to support this heavy industry. So, do you think it is something that we really have in the next generation, or we are just losing industrial knowledge here and we will see more complications in the future?
It is an excellent question. I don't have a good answer.
Right.
It is clearly a need, and it is something that the United States needs to think through from the marketplace, from a policy perspective, from what do we as a country want to be. These are some pretty loaded questions, and as on here we are, 2026. I don't have a crystal ball on how we solve this. Fully
Definitely.
recognize it is a significant challenge.
Automation is very helpful. Definitely is super helpful, but you think that automation is here to save the industry or to replace it?
But that's interesting. Okay, that's a really good point because yeah, we talk about the jobs, but the evolution of the jobs, I think sometimes get lost.
Right.
Yes, you've got automation, you've got technology, you've got different improving processes that just don't require the same number of people with the same skill set. And so
Hmm.
that too needs to be viewed as an evolving standpoint. Just like we wouldn't rebuild a smelter that was planned in the 1980s.
Right.
Modern technology with modern infrastructure, with modern workforce, the workforce will have to evolve to the demand of the labor. So it just so yeah, as we sit here today, are we going to have the same number of jobs, same types of jobs as we did 15 years ago? Well, no. I'm not sure what sector does.
No.
So I think it's going to be an evolution on the definition of an aluminum job that'll help answer that type of question. So it's evolving, it's complicated, it's incredibly important, I just don't. I think we just have to wait and see how this plays out.
So, what skills will define the next generation of industrial leaders? What do you think? Because we have AI, we have automation, 4.0 technology, IoT, everything is coming into this industry right now that is already applied in other industries, but in the aluminum industry is taking more, like they make it more importance in these, let's say, I will say, yeah, technologies, right? And it's important because we right now have better data collection. We can increase the control of our processes. We know better how to handle the liquid aluminum and create less dross and blah blah blah. But what are those skills that the next generation industrial leaders will need in order to also be competitive in this industry?
I think it's an excellent question. I think they're a combination of three things. The engineering expertise, you just can't lose that. At the fundamental, making metal is an engineering process. So to understand the technology side of this, equally important, I believe, is the communication side.
Right.
Yes, you're spot on. There's a lot of technological tools that are helping us advance things, but there are people who are doing this, and people need to communicate. And so, how can
Definitely.
you be an effective communicator? And then the third part of that triangle is leadership. Technology can give you tools to help you get better at it, but do you still have the vision? Do you still
Definitely.
have, are you bold enough to take the chances? Are you willing to take responsible risks? Are you still able to keep you and others accountable? I understand the hard skills are
Mhm.
evolving, but the soft skills have become even more important, you could argue.
Oh, definitely.
There's a world in which you can look down and press buttons all day long. But if you're going to be a leader, you're going to grow, you're going to motivate other people. How effective are you at communicating? And what kind of leader do you want to be?
Right.
Those skills, they all complement each other. But leadership and most effective communications, you can't just look down and press a button. You got to
Right.
look the other person in the eye. You have to be with integrity. You have to know what you're talking about. You have to have vision. That hasn't changed.
Nope.
Technology can change all at once, but the need, the requirements of an effective leader, tweaking on the margins, but that's the skill you're going to need: leadership and communication.
Right. Totally agree. So saying that from your point of view, and I know that you don't have a crystal ball, it is what it is, but what do you think the industry will look like in 10 years? With all the policies that we are trying to implement, with all the importance that we are giving to the recycling industry, with all this approach that we really want to focus on rebuild the primary sector here in the US, in 10 years, what do you think is going to happen and what keeps you optimistic about it?
Growth, growth, and growth. I just think you've got the fundamentals are there. You've got demand. You've got the largest consuming market in the world.
Mhm.
You have, again, politically it swings back and forth, but you see a greater emphasis on the need for supply chains, energy policy, trade policy. You have a combination of policies that are going to help meet that growing demand. I don't see a scenario where the United States is not the largest economy in 10 years. I understand China is a serious competitor,
Definitely.
but the United States continues to be the strongest economy in the world.
It is.
And all those
Absolutely.
markets we were talking about for aluminum will continue to grow. I understand the auto sector goes up and down. Aviation goes through economic trends, but it's still growing. Middle class is going to want more beverage cans. Middle class wants to continue driving to work.
Mhm.
We talk about the
Absolutely.
energy expansion. Data centers are going to continue to grow and demand more transmission lines, building more houses. It's just, you go across the board of all the market that the aluminum sector serves will continue to grow.
Definitely.
Spits, spurts and fits, but it will grow. So in 2036, I see a stronger supply chain. I see greater increased domestic production. I'm very optimistic of where the sector and the country will be in 10 years.
I have an interesting question for you that you already said what I was expecting. If you used to had unlimited authority for 1 year, just 1 year, what would you change first in order to move in that direction?
It's a loaded question. You're talking about from the aluminum side or for the country?
Both. At the end of the day, we need to change the country to change the aluminum side, right? So, what would you do if you had 1 year authority to change whatever you want in order to let's focus about the aluminum.
Great question. It would be energy and infrastructure policy. A
Mhm.
lot of emphasis, we keep talking about the energy for primary. Secondary
Right.
needs energy too, far less.
Of course.
But
Of
if we're
course.
looking at being globally competitive, every commodity has a price ceiling of some sort, whether it's official or unofficial. So increasing the prices is only if works until it doesn't. I would prefer to lower the cost of production.
Right.
We need labor. We should be paying Americans a good wage. So I don't want to lower that part. But on the energy side, I would think a permitting reform, greater transmissions, government intervention to help alleviate the price
Right.
of the pressures of the energy supply. I think to get all this right, would have to start with energy, and I think that would
Electricity,
that's
sorry, electricity or natural gas? What do you think is going to be the best
yes,
choice?
yes. I'm trying to get rid of this either or business. Can we just stop with the adjectives? Solar,
Right,
wind, gas. I understand coal is not part of the future. No, not going to change my mind on that one. But gas, solar, wind, nuclear, storage batteries, we need it all. And can we just, I would prefer we stop doing this either or business. We need it all. And we need to have more production and we need to have greater transmission. And so if we can get energy right, that'll certainly strengthen aluminum manufacturing, I believe, and SAFE believes. And that's why we look at this holistically. Responsible energy policy is good for the national economy.
right. So to wrap up this episode, first of all, I appreciate it. The input was amazing. Definitely, I think from the point of view of policies and the geopolitical that we are seeing right now, I mean, all these conflicts, and I will not say conflicts. I will say that definitely things are changing, and change brings different type of movements, and I think it's very interesting what is happening, and I'm very happy to be part of it and see what is going to happen with the evolution of this industry. But to wrap up this episode, what message would you send to the young people that wants to get into this manufacturing industry?
The opportunities are endless. Growing demand, world's largest consumer economy, with opportunities within technology, energy, infrastructure. If you want to look at this from a sustainability sector, you want to look at this from a technological growth, hard engineering, soft engineering, the possibilities are endless.
Agreed. Agreed. Joe, thank you so much. This was not only an aluminum conversation, definitely this was a conversation about the future of the industrial America. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Anything else that you want to say right now for the audience?
This is a great podcast. I've been a big fan for a long time, so it is a privilege to be on here. So thank you for this opportunity. And I think for the audience to think of aluminum as so much more than just metal. It's such a vital part of the national economy. Here I am talking about national security for a while, but also don't lose sight on the commercial side of this, just how important this industry is. And as someone who walks around Washington all the time, I want to tell your audience, this industry is getting a lot more attention in the best possible way. So I think it's very good time to be in the industry with a lot of growth ahead of it, because
Definitely.
there are policymakers looking at your industries as something just more than making a piece of metal, but as something that is a strategic imperative to the United States.
Right. Well, Joe, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And for the audience, okay, guys, take advantage of all this information. Just dig in and please keep moving the industry forward because, as Joe just said, it's growing and it's going to grow a lot in the next 10 years. So thank you so much for being here. Definitely a great episode. And see you in Harbor, right?
Yes, looking forward to it.
Cool. So we will be there. If you want to catch up with us, just go there. We will be more than open and happy to talk about everything related to this industry. Joe, thank you so much again. And see you there.
Dirty Scrap Podcast.